Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're trying to make sense of the, constantly changing world of corporate communications. We're not just looking at a generic job description. We're actually going to dissect the interview playbook that top companies are using to find their next communications officer.
Exactly. And this is all about getting past what's on the resume. Our mission here is to really figure out what employers are testing for.
Which is what exactly?
It's that strategic thinking. Can you execute? Can you adapt on the fly? Can you handle pressure? And the big one is, can you back up every single decision with actual data?
So it's about agility.
Intellectual agility.
Okay, so we've got three main areas we're going to hit today. First, we'll dig into the technical and strategic stuff, using monitoring tools and metrics to really prove your worth.
Right.
Then we're going to tackle what I think is the fun part. The art of adaptation. How you tailor your message for an engineer, then turn around and talk to the CEO.
A critical skill.
And finally, we'll look at the prep work, the foundational stuff that takes a good candidate and makes them, a strategic partner. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
All right, so starting with strategy. The modern comms role has to be proactive. All the materials we looked at hammer this home. You have to master media monitoring tools. It's not enough to just say, Meltwater or Google Alerts.
Yeah.
You have to show how you turn that raw data into something usable.
That's the key distinction right there. Anyone can pull a report that shows how many times you were mentioned.
Sure.
But a strategic officer uses sentiment analysis to see what's coming next. You see a subtle negative trend around a competitor.
Okay.
You can go to your leadership today and advise them on how to get ahead of it in your own messaging. You're basically stopping a crisis before anyone even knows it's a crisis.
That's a huge shift from being reactive to proactive.
It's everything.
Because if you're not monitoring, you're constantly playing catch up. And there's a cost to that, right?
Right.
There's that lag time where, bad info or just negative sentiment is defining the story before you've even had a chance to say anything.
And that ties right into measurement. It's the classic problem for comms departments, trying to show ROI.
Right. How do you prove a campaign actually worked?
What are the metrics that show you that genuinely move the needle for the business beyond just, people saw it?
It has to start with clear goals right up front. If the goal is just brand awareness, okay, fine. You can track reach and impressions.
But that's not enough anymore.
No. The real strategic insight comes when you can separate the vanity metrics, likes and shares, from the metrics that actually drive the business.
Yes, like tracking conversions that came directly from a comms campaign, or seeing a drop in customer service calls because your public statements were clearer.
That's a great one.
That's tangible value. Connecting your message to something real, like generating sales leads or shifting how users engage with your product.
Okay, but what about constraints? Because success usually comes with a tight budget.
Always.
So if you're told to get high impact with, almost no money, the answer can't just be do less, it has to be smarter.
It's ruthless prioritization.
So you focus on the high impact, low cost channels. Social media, community partners, earned media. But here's the question I have. If you're only focused on what's cheap, are you maybe risking the brand's integrity or how it's perceived? Where do you draw that line?
That is a crucial question. The best strategy finds a balance between controlling costs and being authentic to the channel.
What do you mean?
Well, if your audience trusts industry newsletters, just hitting them with free Instagram posts is going to fail, no matter how much money you save.
Right, it will land.
The strategy has to be about maximizing impact within that budget. So maybe it means a really targeted email campaign to 50 key journalists instead of a big, expensive print ad. It's about precision, not volume.
Okay, let's shift from proactive strategy to immediate reaction, crisis management. Negative info is spreading like wildfire on social media. The core ideas are always speed, transparency, consistency. But let's break down the mechanics. How do you actually control the narrative in, say, a product recall?
First thing is you activate a coordinated message cascade immediately. This means the key message gets to your internal people, employees, investors before it hits the press.
So internal first.
Always. Then the public message has to be totally straightforward. Acknowledge the problem right away and immediately focus on how you're going to fix it. Silence is the worst thing you can do. It lets rumors fill the void.
And the material really emphasizes that transparency is how you start to rebuild trust.
Absolutely.
It's not just one press release. It's providing info everywhere, your website, an FAQ, social media updates, and they all have to have the exact same tone and the same information. You have to become the only reliable source of information instantly. That actually moves us perfectly into our second big area, the art of adaptation. Technical skill might get you the interview, but your agility in communication is what will define your career. Let's start with simplifying complexity. How do you explain a really technical failure to an audience that has no background in it?
Interviewers are looking for more than just, don't use jargon. They're looking for empathy.
Empathy.
Can you put yourself in the non-technical person's shoes and figure out the two questions they have, which are always, what does this mean for me? And what do I need to do?
That's where the analogies come in.
Exactly.
The classic one is explaining data encryption. You say it's like locking a diary, or a firewall is a bouncer at a club. It's not just about being clever. It connects something they don't know to an experience they do.
It makes it tangible. It makes it stick.
And that skill applies horizontally, too. When you have a really diverse audience, you've got different cultures, languages, huge gaps in expertise.
A one-size-fits-all plan just won't work. It's fundamentally flawed.
So you have to segment them, you do your research, and then you pick the right channel for the right group.
Right. For your specialists, maybe it's a deep dive white paper or a technical webinar.
But for the general public.
Short, visual content on a platform they're already scrolling through every day.
And what's the part that most people miss?
The feedback loop. A lot of organizations forget this. Segmentation isn't something you do once. You had to keep gathering feedback surveys, comment monitoring, whatever, to refine your approach. What works for one group in January might be totally wrong by June. It's constant refinement.
This need to adapt also goes vertically, up and down the management chain.
Oh, absolutely.
The way you frame an issue for a project manager has to be completely different from how you present it to the board.
100%. The CEO, senior leadership, they care about strategic priorities, macro level risk.
Right.
They don't want a 20-slide deck on your methods. They want slide 1, bullet points 2 and 3. What does this mean for our market position, and what are we going to do about it?
Whereas the team lead or the middle manager, they need the tactical stuff.
They need the how, the deadlines, who gets what resources, what the clear expectations are. They're the ones who have to actually implement the strategy.
And what's the one skill that ties all of that together no matter who you're talking to?
It's active listening. That's how you build rapport and trust. You listen to a junior employee's concern, not just to make them feel heard, but because they might see an operational risk that the senior leaders are completely blind to.
Okay, let's pivot to the really tough situations. Handling difficult stakeholders or delivering bad news like budget cuts. This is where you really earn your keep.
Budget cuts are never easy. The key is to pair total clarity with a lot of empathy.
So you have to be transparent about the why, not just the what.
Exactly. If you can frame the cuts as a necessary pivot to a more sustainable future, instead of just a punishment, you can start to ease some of that frustration.
And what about that difficult stakeholder? The advice we saw goes beyond just listen more.
It does. It's a strategic process. A difficult stakeholder is often just venting general frustration. Your job is to listen and then clarify their core concern.
Pinpoint it.
Pinpoint the specific thing they feel is at risk, and then you work with them to find a solution that addresses their concern while still serving the bigger goal. You're using communication to bridge a political gap.
So you're turning a conflict into a problem-solving session.
That's it. By clarifying their needs and working together, you show respect, you start rebuilding trust, and you can move forward even if the final outcome isn't exactly what they first wanted.
You know, all these advanced skills, they really rely on a strong professional foundation. Which brings us to our last segment, integrity and preparation.
A classic high-stakes interview question is about what you do if your personal values conflict with a company policy.
And this is really a test of your professional maturity, right?
It is. The strategic way to answer is to show that you respect the company's guidelines, which, often exist for legal or security reasons you might not even be aware of.
So instead of seeing it as a fight,
you seek a dialogue to understand the purpose behind the policy. You try to find a balanced approach, one that champions as much transparency and empathy as possible while still staying within those professional lines.
And that sense of integrity shows up in day-to-day stuff, too, like how you take constructive criticism or how you help build a positive team culture.
2 crucial soft skills.
So with criticism, the professional response is to own it and then act on it. If someone tells you your emails are too long,
you don't get defensive.
Right. You acknowledge it, and then you take a measurable step to improve. You say, okay, I'm going to use a new template, and my goal is to cut my email length by 20%. You turn the feedback into professional growth.
And building that positive team culture, especially when everyone's remote, relies so much on clear, inclusive communication.
It could be something simple, right?
Yeah, simple but strategic. Like starting a weekly virtual check-in that's not about work. It encourages honest talk, you celebrate small wins. That kind of structured, informal communication builds morale so that when a real crisis hits, the team is already a solid unit.
All right, this deep dive wouldn't be complete if we didn't give you the prep checklist from the material. If you have that big interview coming up, this is your game plan.
First up, company website research. And go deep. Don't just read the mission statement.
No.
Dig into the newsroom archives, investor reports. What is the company telling the market it's going to do over the next 3 years? That gives you the strategic context you need.
Second, social media analysis. This is a must for a comms role. Look at their tone, their response time, what kind of content actually gets people talking. It shows you the real living company culture.
Third is competitor analysis. You have to know the landscape. What are your rivals saying? Where does your company have a unique edge? This lets you walk in ready to suggest better, more proactive strategies.
And finally, Glassdoor.
Yeah, Glassdoor research, it gives you the internal pulse. Now, you have to take individual reviews with a grain of salt, of course.
Of course.
But look for patterns. If you see repeated comments about management style or communication jams, it helps you ask smarter questions during the interview that show you understand their reality.
And a quick final logistics point, because it does matter.
It does. Professional presentation. The goal is to minimize distraction. Stick to professional business attire. Avoid strong scents, excessive jewelry, anything that might pull focus from what you're saying. You want them focused on your strategic mind.
This has been just an incredibly useful look into what makes modern communications work. I think the big takeaway for me is that the best comms people are defined by two things. Their ability to adapt their style, for an engineer versus a board member, and their absolute commitment to using hard data from monitoring tools and analytics to back up everything they do.
And if we tie this all together, here's a final thought for you to chew on. Imagine this. You're tasked with launching a major new product, but your budget is, let's say, severely limited.
The classic scenario.
Right. The guide suggests that authentic storytelling, like short videos with real employees, is super effective. But it also says you have to prioritize low-cost channels like social media, which are incredibly noisy.
Okay, so what's the challenge?
How would you structure that campaign? How do you balance the need for that creative, authentic story with the reality of a crowded, low-cost channel and still make sure your message actually cuts through all that noise to reach the right people?
A tough strategic puzzle to think about as you get ready for that next big move. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you next time.